part 4 of the 5 insider tips you need to have in order to deal with your husband's porn problem. Now, let's do a quick review of the first 3 parts. But before we do that, go ahead and give this a thumbs up, girl, because if you like the last one, you're going to like this one. And I need you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can find out when the next one is coming up. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a quick review. We talked about the fact that you should take some quiet time to get some direction from God. You can't do this thing on your own. You need to figure out what is your next step. And I promise you, it is not nagging, because that's only going to push your husband further away. Because in the back of his mind, he thinks he has control over it, and he doesn't. But you can't tell him that, because then it becomes a big argument. And I've coached so many women who have dealt with the same thing. I was in that place myself, so you can't. So now you've got to get some downloads from God to see what your next step is, okay? Number 2, we talked about the fact that you cannot allow this porn thing to consume your whole world. You need to take some time for you. Enjoy doing some things you want to do. And number 3, this probably is one of the most hardest ones, but you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, because you know God. Forgive your husband. In the midst of him watching the porn, forgive him. And I talk about the fact that forgiveness and trust are 2 different things. So make sure you watch those 3 videos. But now I want to talk about part 4, and that is forgive yourself. Okay, you may ask, why do I have to forgive myself? Because many women, maybe you're an exception to the rule, but more than likely, you have internalized this as being your fault. Maybe I'm not good enough in bed. Maybe my breasts are not good enough. Maybe I don't do this good enough in bed. It's not you. And let me tell you why. And I'll tell you, I'll include my husband's story. He started watching this in middle school. You were nowhere around. More than likely, you were nowhere around when your husband was in middle school. And even if you were, you had nothing to do with it. Someone showed him a pornographic magazine, and it started a series of negative events. And normally that's the path for most men and women. Some women are addicted too, but we're not talking about that. I'm talking about a man, your husband, being addicted to porn. Someone shows them something in elementary or middle school. They're taken back, they're devastated, they can't understand it, they're trying to process it. And all along, the enemy is working on them. Even at this age, he's dealing with their brains, because studies show that there's a difference in a person's brain when they are watching porn versus when they're not. You get to high school, your parents are not as involved, concerned about what you're watching, so you can hide it. You get to college, nobody's there to hold you accountable. Probably the people around you are watching it, so you think you're good. So then you get out of college, you got a girlfriend, you're watching it periodically, you're not even thinking about anything. But in the back of your mind, when you do prepare to get married, you think, once I get married and can get sex as much as I want, I'll stop watching porn. But that's a lie of the enemy, because in most cases, it doesn't stop. Because it's not about the porn. It's about the fantasy world that the enemy has dragged your husband into when he was probably a kid. So that's why you have to forgive yourself for even internalizing this as it being your fault. It is not your fault. Tell yourself, it is not my fault. It is something that the enemy has roped your husband around, and he thinks he can get rid of it, but he can't. So you have to let go of the guilt and the shame. Even if he's telling you it's your fault, it's not your fault. I would ask him, how long have you been watching this? Have you been watching this since we got married and you feel this way? But again, you got to really be careful with the words, because again, you got to be willing to forgive. I talked about that yesterday. Forgive him. But forgive yourself, because this is not your fault, and you will never be able to compete with a made-up person. That made-up person, that woman, probably had breast implants. She may have had lip Botox, all kinds of stuff. She probably was sexually abused when she was a child. What would make somebody go into that industry? So, and I'm not judging the woman who's doing it, but I'm just saying you won't compare. A lot of times they put these women and men on drugs. So while they're having sex in the act of it, they're on drugs, they're drinking. No one wants to be a porn star. Let's be honest. But we're not talking about that. I'm talking about you forgiving yourself. Let it go. Say, Lord, I forgive myself, and understand that you are worthy because God loves you. You are good enough. Now, you know, are you putting forth your best effort to look the best? That's between you and God. But I will tell you, no matter what you do, it will never compare with that woman. And a person could be married to a porn star and still be addicted to pornography. That's why I'm trying to tell you it's not your fault. So anyway, I pray that that has encouraged you. We have one more step left. I want to give you tomorrow or the next day a very practical step that you're going to need to take in order to get through this thing. So again, go ahead and give this a like, a subscribe, and a notification bell click. I know that was all wrong, but anyway, you know what you need to do. And you know what? Share this with somebody, okay? All right, I'm Tiffany Godfrey, your committed wife coach. I will see you in part 5.